Cultivated live for Wednesday, October 23rd. I am Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder of Cultivated Media, the host of this program called Cultivated Live. And since we launched, our goal at Cultivated has been to be cannabis industry first, providing you with the most important, insightful, useful, and timely information. We do that through a daily newsletter, which you can get at cultivated.news. We do that through a daily live stream, which is Cultivated Live, which is what you're watching. And we stream through LinkedIn and YouTube. So find us, subscribe to us, follow us there, and get our newsletter in your inbox every day by going to cultivated.news. It's why I wear this hat. And it's the important, useful, and timely stuff we're going to talk about today with Shawn Hauser from Vicente LLP. Shawn, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this may be the most fun thing we've ever talked about here on Cultivated Live. At least I'm excited about it. You have helped organize a cannabis community event with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's campaign featuring Willie Nelson. I never thought I'd say all those words in a sentence together, but I love it. How did this happen?
So this happened out of a mutual recognition between us, a law firm dedicated to cannabis reform and advocacy, and a number of stakeholders, and Willie Nelson and his wife Annie, who have been longtime advocates of cannabis reforms and supporters of Harris Walz. And it was born out of the understanding of the importance to engage and empower the community in this incredibly important election. And we know that there are critically important issues at stake, that it is crucial to put an end to the failed drug war and to end prohibition, and among many other issues that the Harris Walz leadership is champions on, and that we might have the power to impact some change by engaging the community. We saw the success of a number of other of the Zoom calls and thought that was a perfect venue.
I think I mentioned I was on one of those calls earlier. It was Deadheads for Harris Walz. I don't mind saying it. It was super fun. And these are really, they are fun. There's a lot of them. It's a good way, obviously, to get the base involved, get more people involved. But this one is special in that it's sort of targeting the cannabis community, which I can't imagine a previous election where that was so overtly the conversation, right? Like, this is actually being billed as the cannabis community coming together along with Willie Nelson to actually I assume talk about these issues as well, which have been really for the first time on the campaign trail and being discussed very openly and broadly.
Yeah, I think, the fact that we're all together, having this discussion speaks to the fact that for the first time we have a major party presidential candidate explicitly stating that ending cannabis prohibition is a priority, and one that has, a long history of supporting criminal justice reform and legalizing and regulating cannabis responsibly. She genuinely recognizes the harms caused by federal prohibition, particularly among communities of color. And, in her vice presidency with the Biden administration in October 2022, they expeditiously ordered the federal government to review whether marijuana belonged in Schedule I. And we are, near the final stages of marijuana rescheduling, which is one of the biggest shifts in drug policy reform in history. She's also been, the champion of cannabis legalization and regulation frameworks in Congress with the MORE Act, has sponsored a number of other cannabis reform efforts, and is, like I said, the first major party candidate to prioritize ending prohibition and call for full legalization. And so I think, in this election, we're also talking about the electability of cannabis, which is supported by an overwhelming amount of Americans.
Yeah, even in our newsletter this morning, we talked about some polling even in places like Kansas, where medical cannabis tests through the roof in polling, but even adult use recreational cannabis is well over 50%. We're going to see in Florida, which is, is also a red state, but polling very high, where they have a measure 2 weeks on the ballot as well. So it does seem to be a shift in the electorate, but a shift in electorate doesn't always translate to shift in sort of what elected officials or candidates for office are saying. And in this case, it is, which is exciting to see, and also exciting because on tomorrow night we can hear the community get together with the candidates and the campaign to talk about it. What do you expect from the actual event itself? Will there be more news made? Will it be more of a sort of celebration of what she said or plans for the future? Do you have any idea?
I think we can expect one fun. I think it's going to be a really fun event hosted by Willie and Annie from Luck headquarters in Texas, which is a really special historic place. And I think we can expect real conversation from the guests, including folks like Whoopi Goldberg, Governor Polis, Representatives Barber and Earl Blumenauer, the chairs of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, musicians and outspoken advocates like Margot Price and Chris Spencer, really talking about the importance of this election for many issues, including cannabis, and why they support cannabis reform. And I think we can expect the guests to engage. And I think we'll hear from Willie, and Annie, who've been advocating for cannabis reform for decades and decades. How much work has been put in so far, for decades, and ending prohibition, and how far we've come, and why having leadership that can take us over the finish line is what we have in front of us.
It is interesting also because I feel like you and me and people who work in the industry on a day-to-day basis think change happens so slowly, but the way you just described sort of the introduction of the rescheduling idea to actually being where we are in the span of what usually happens in Washington is actually relatively fast. And I think we'll look back on sort of the 2022, 2023, 2024, and hopefully 2025 as times when things actually moved relatively quickly in Washington, but also on a state by state level, lots happened, right? We've had, we'll have an election in Florida. We've had Ohio. There'll be something happening in hopefully Pennsylvania. We've had New York, New Jersey, Maryland. Like a lot has come online in relatively short amount of time. Minnesota. So it is interesting to sort of plant this seed during this election with Willie, with his wife, with you, and with the campaign to say, this is actually a seminal moment in this industry and for this community and for social justice, racial justice. These are important issues that should be on the forefront of people's minds. And I applaud you and the team for making it happen tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, when I started my work in cannabis reform, you couldn't even have conversations at the federal level about cannabis. Candidates, supporting the issue, but with Vice President Harris actually having a long-standing record on this issue and being part of an administration that did make expeditious progress. I think it's a critical moment and one of the most important moments we've had in the cannabis reform community to truly get to the finish line here and move towards fully ending prohibition. And I think it speaks like the gravity of this election also emphasizes how much damage can be done by one president who enacts a policy like the war on drugs that was admittedly racist and deprived people of access to medicine and resulted in disproportionately arresting minorities and depressing public health and welfare of our country's most diverse and poorest neighborhoods. And that has taken decades and decades and decades to undo. And we're so close. And I think Willie can speak to what work every generation he's seen has done towards this effort. And I think the Harris Walls campaign, can speak to, a call to action for, the youth and new generations to do their part and, getting over the finish line here. And with her commitment to prioritizing a legalization and a regulatory framework, that's something we can hold this administration accountable for and support. And the benefit of having so many of these state frameworks and the progress we've made on the state side is we have, the state laboratories to inform a smart, effective federal regulatory framework, and we're ready.
Yeah. It's very exciting, and I don't think the cannabis community could do better than having Willie Nelson and Annie be the champions on tomorrow night's Zoom call. So, Shawn, thank you so much for the work that you've done to make it happen. Good luck with the rest of the week and certainly Thursday night. And we'll put how to register. Where this is Wednesday morning, but we'll link to how to register in the show notes as well. Shawn, thanks for making time.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Thanks for sharing the event.